Commander Elora Voss was a woman of focus. Unlike many of her peers in the human fleet, she'd never been content with the routine tasks that often filled a military officer's days. Her skills as a tactician and strategist were sharp, and she had earned respect for her ability to predict enemy movements and craft flawless plans. Yet, deep within her, there burned a question that never seemed to fade. What makes humanity different from all the other species in the galaxy? She had served on countless missions, many of them routine. But her latest assignment was anything but ordinary. Her ship, the Resolute, had been dispatched to explore a volatile war zone in the outer reaches of the galaxy, a region known for its constant state of conflict. Two massive factions, the Tari Dominion and the Carven Collective, had been locked in an endless war over control of a strategically important region of space. For decades, the war had ravaged the area, leaving debris, destroyed ships, and countless battle remnants scattered throughout the sector. The mission itself seemed simple enough: gather intelligence on the ongoing conflict and assess the potential for future human involvement in the region. The higher-ups in the human fleet wanted to stay neutral for now, no need to jump into the galactic politics just yet. Elora's orders were clear: observe, document, and report. Humanity, after all, had learned to survive in the galaxy by not getting too deeply involved in the endless conflicts of other species. Yet, as Elora stood on the bridge of the Resolute, she couldn't help but feel the weight of something more. This wasn't just another observation mission. It was an opportunity to understand the bigger picture, to learn what truly set humanity apart in the galactic landscape. This war zone, a product of ancient hatred between the Tari and Carven, held secrets, and Elora was determined to uncover them. As the Resolute made its way deeper into the heart of the war zone, Elora's crew monitored the usual data radio chatter, distress signals, and tactical reports from the various factions. The environment was chaotic, to say the least. Space was littered with the wreckage of ships, some still smoking, others drifting lifelessly in the cold vacuum. The only certainty was the constant danger. The war zone was full of hostile ships, and even stray missiles or debris could easily cause catastrophic damage to an unsuspecting vessel. While reviewing some strange sensor data, the crew picked up an unusual signal. It wasn't just any transmission, this one seemed odd. Unlike the usual coded military messages or encrypted distress calls, this signal was a repeated word. Distorted, yet clear enough to be understood, the word echoed through the Resolute's communication systems. Humanity. 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 The repetition was unsettling. It wasn't just a regular message. It was a constant hum, pulsing through the ship's systems like a beacon. At first, Elora dismissed it as a glitch, something common in such an unstable environment. But as the signal grew louder, it became clear that this was no mistake. The ship's systems began to experience brief malfunctions, glitching in response to the strange frequency. Lights flickered, consoles buzzed erratically, and the comms officer struggled to regain control. Elora's brow furrowed with concern. It wasn't just noise, it was something more. This was a deliberate signal, sent with purpose. She ordered the crew to pinpoint the source, but the location of the signal was unlike any known communication beacon. It came from deep within the heart of the war zone, from a sector that both the Tari and Carven had avoided for centuries. The area was too dangerous, too contested, no one dared venture there. Yet, here was a signal, practically shouting one word: humanity. Elora couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't a coincidence. The war zone had been defined by constant conflict for so long, and neither the Tari nor the Carven seemed to have any interest in humanity. The concept of humanity itself held little weight in the galaxy. Humanity was still a young species, barely starting to make its mark. In the eyes of many advanced civilizations, humans were little more than a nuisance. But to hear humanity echoed so loudly in a region where the larger galactic powers hadn't even acknowledged them was strange. This was something else, something more. It was a clue. A message that Elora was certain held far more significance than just a random transmission. Elora's curiosity soon gave way to determination. The Resolute would follow the signal. She ordered the crew to track it, scanning every inch of the war zone for its origin. The deeper they went, the more the mystery expanded. The Sci-Fi and Carven were too caught up in their endless war to care about this signal. To them, humanity was irrelevant, a speck of dust in the grand scheme of things. But to Alara, it was a doorway, a potential turning point in the galaxy's history. Her new mission was clear: uncover the truth behind the humanity signal. Whatever it was bound to be far more significant than any intelligence report. The question was no longer just about gathering information, it was about answering the call. What was the true purpose of this signal? Who had sent it and why? And perhaps, more importantly, was it a message for humanity or something far more dangerous? The answers lay ahead, in the heart of a war zone that had been forgotten by most, yet may hold the key to changing everything. In this opening chapter, Alora's journey has shifted from a simple mission to one of monumental importance. The discovery of a mysterious signal brings new life to her quiet military career, and she begins to realize that humanity's place in the galaxy might be more crucial than she ever thought. What begins as an observational task transforms into a quest that could reshape the future of galactic politics if Alara can uncover the truth before someone else does. The deeper Alara and her crew ventured into the war zone, the more mysterious the signal became. It was no longer a simple beacon calling for humanity's attention. It was leading them to something far greater than anyone could have anticipated. What had initially seemed like an isolated transmission, a potential clue about humanity's role in the galaxy, was now pulling them into a tangled web of ancient history, power struggles, and high-stakes political maneuvering. The signal's source led them to a long-forgotten star system, hidden in a remote sector of the war zone. At first, it seemed like any other abandoned place in the galaxy, dark, silent, and desolate. But when Alara's crew began their scans, they realized that there was far more to the system than met the eye. The coordinates led them directly to a planet, its surface dotted with craters and ancient ruins. The planet's faint energy signature was enough to pique their interest, but it wasn't until they began sifting through the debris of long-dead civilizations that they uncovered a shocking truth. This was the lost homeworld of the Valari, a race thought to have been annihilated during the early years of the Sci-Fi conflict. The Valari had been an advanced civilization, their technology decades ahead of even the Sci-Fi or Carven, but they had vanished without a trace, their empire, crushed in a war that no one remembered well. The war had been devastating, and in the chaos that followed, the galaxy had simply forgotten the Valari. But they hadn't just disappeared, they had left something behind. The crew uncovered a relic deep beneath the planet's surface, a massive, ancient device of unknown purpose. It was buried and concealed, hidden away in a place so remote that it had taken millennia for it to be discovered. Alara stood before the device, its surface covered in intricate patterns, glowing faintly in the dim light of the cavern they had excavated. It was no ordinary machine. This was a weapon, yes, but it was something far more dangerous. The Valari had created it as a tool of ultimate control. The device had the power to influence minds, disrupt entire fleets, and alter the very nature of warfare. It wasn't just a destructive force, it was a means to control the outcome of any battle, any war, at will. Alara's heart raced as the implications of what they had found started to sink. IN.IT wasn't just a weapon to end the war, it was a weapon that could rewrite the rules of war itself. It could make humanity the dominant force in the galaxy. But at what cost? As the crew examined the device further, they uncovered a hidden truth encoded in the machine's complex data. Whoever controlled it would reshape the future of the galaxy. The very existence of the Valari had been erased because of this device. The Sci-Fi and Carven hadn't just been fighting over a piece of space, they had been fighting to ensure the device remained buried, dormant. And now, it had been found. Alara's mind raced with the possibilities. If humanity gained control of this device, they could bring an end to the war. They could secure peace, ensure the safety of the human race, and perhaps even elevate humanity to a position of power among the stars. But there was a deep, unsettling feeling in her gut. This device was a double-edged sword. It had the potential to bring peace, yes, but it also had the power to corrupt. Could humanity wield it without losing their very soul? The moral dilemma began to gnaw at Alara. She wasn't the only one grappling with the situation. The crew was divided. Lieutenant Caden Torin, her steadfast first officer, was eager to use the weapon. He saw it as a tool to catapult humanity to the top of the galactic order. The Tari and Carven were weak. Fragmented humanity could easily tip the scales in their favor and rule. In Caden's eyes, the device was not only a weapon of victory, it was the key to humanity's ascension. But not everyone agreed. Dr. Maris Volta, the ship's chief scientist, voiced her concerns. She feared what might happen if humanity used such a device. It was too much power, too much potential for corruption. The galaxy had enough empires built on fear and domination. Humanity had fought hard to avoid becoming just another conqueror in a galaxy full of them. Volta argued that the risks far outweighed the benefits, and that they should destroy the device before it fell into the wrong hands or worse, became a tool of their own downfall. Alara was caught in the middle of this growing divide. She knew that the device could give humanity a monumental advantage, but could they truly be trusted with such power? Would the temptation of absolute control corrupt them? The thoughts swirled in her mind as she turned her attention back to the device. But there were other forces at play. As Alara's crew debated the use of the Velarre technology, an unexpected player entered the scene, the Carven Collective. Representatives of the Carven reached out to Alara with an offer. They knew about the device, and they wanted it. Their emissary, a Carven diplomat named Terrace, proposed a ceasefire in exchange for control of the technology. With this device, Terra said, his voice smooth but carrying an underlying threat. But if you use it, there will be no turning back. And if you don't, we will. The choice is yours. It was a chilling ultimatum. The Carven, ever calculating, understood the stakes. But Alara wasn't swayed by the threat of war. What disturbed her most was the underlying message. The Carven weren't asking for peace. They were asking for a weapon to tip the scales in their favor. They didn't want to end the war, they wanted to control it. And that was a dangerous path to walk. On top of the external pressures, the internal tension among her crew grew. As Alara faced the challenge of navigating political intrigue, the secrets of the Velarre device grew more complicated. Cryptic messages hidden within the device began to emerge, revealing even more about its true power. The war between the Tari and Carven wasn't an accident. It had been intentionally fostered to keep the device dormant. Whoever controlled it would have the power to change the galaxy forever, and Alara began to realize that the true war was not between the Tari and Carven, but over the Velarre technology itself. The stakes had shifted. Humanity was now in the center of a galactic power struggle, and the cost of their involvement was far higher than anyone had imagined. The decision Alara made could either secure humanity's place in the galaxy or send them down a path from which there was no return. The conflict was no longer just about survival. It was about control, power, and the very future of humanity. And the truth behind the Velarre device was about to shatter everything they thought they knew about the galaxy. Alara sat in the dimly lit command room, the ancient Velarre device glowing softly in the center of the table. The hum of the ship's systems and the low murmurs of her crew were distant, as if they were all trapped in a world of their own thoughts. Alara stared at the device, now fully activated and pulsing with energy, but it was the message they had uncovered that haunted her. It had been buried deep within the device's complex systems, encrypted in layers that only someone with her expertise could decipher. The message was simple, yet its impact was profound. To control is to destroy. It was a chilling realization that sent a shiver down Alara's spine. The weapon they had uncovered wasn't just a tool for victory in a war. It was a means of controlling entire civilizations, forcing them into a never-ending cycle of conflict. The Velarre, it turned out, had crafted not just a weapon, but a galactic network of manipulation. The device, once activated, sent ripples through the fabric of space and time itself, influencing minds, stirring fears, and perpetuating strife. It was designed to prevent anyone's species from ever achieving true unity or peace. The Velarre had learned from centuries of experience that the true threat to power was cooperation, solidarity, unity across species. Peace meant the loss of control, and the Velarre had devised the device to ensure that no species would ever be strong enough, wise enough, or united enough to challenge the fragile structure of power in the galaxy. Alara's heart pounded as she began to piece the truth together. The Warzone, the very region of space she and her crew had been sent to observe, was no accident. The Valari had carefully set the stage for this eternal conflict. The Estari and Carven weren't the first races to be manipulated. For millennia, the Valari had used similar tactics to maintain a galaxy on the brink of war, ensuring that no one species could ever gain a definitive advantage. Their civilization had been wiped out long ago, but the device they left behind was a mechanism for endless chaos, a reminder that peace was never meant to be an option. The revelation sent a shockwave through Elara's mind. The Warzone was a laboratory, a place where the Valari had tested their theories about control, about the inevitability of conflict. And now, humanity stood at the precipice, holding the very key to that system of control. To use the device would mean to become just another player in the endless cycle of warfare and manipulation. The implications were crushing. She had come into this mission with one goal: to understand what made humanity unique, to find humanity's place in the galaxy. But now, everything had changed. The very thing that could elevate humanity to the top of the galactic food chain was the same thing that would strip away everything that made humanity what it was. The unpredictability of humanity, their strength, their flaws, their emotions, was their defining feature. To use the Valari device would mean abandoning that essence, becoming cold, calculated, and bound by control. Just like the Estari and Carven.as, the realization sank in, Alara's thoughts were interrupted by the tense atmosphere in the command center. Lieutenant Caden Torin, her trusted first officer, stood by her side, his eyes hard with resolve. He had been unwavering in his belief that humanity should seize this power, to use it for their own benefit. He had always seen humanity's unpredictability as a weapon, something to be harnessed, to forge a future where humanity would be the rulers of the galaxy. But now, Alara saw doubt in his eyes. He understood the implications, perhaps more than anyone else on the crew. "Alara, we've come this far," Caden said quietly, his voice edged with frustration. "This device is our chance. We can stop the war. We can end the conflict once and for all. Imagine a galaxy with humanity at its centerpiece, prosperity, power. But at what cost?" Alara whispered, her voice barely audible. "We'd lose ourselves. We'd become just another empire, driven by control and manipulation. We'd become the very thing we've always fought against." Caden hesitated. His fingers gripped the edge of the table, and for a brief moment, Alara saw the conflict in his eyes. He was torn, caught between the dream of a united galaxy under humanity's rule and the reality of what that dream would cost. He didn't want to be part of the machine of control, but he believed that humanity deserved to take charge of its own fate. "We don't have the luxury of ideals anymore, Alara," he said after a long pause. "We have a chance to end this war, to take control. Can you really turn your back on that?" But Alara's heart told her something else. She looked at the device again, feeling the weight of the decision that lay before her. In that moment, she realized that the only way forward was to destroy the device, no matter the consequences. If humanity was to survive, it had to do so on its own terms, without relying on technology that bent the will of others. The galaxy had to be free from the influence of the Valari's twisted vision of control. To preserve humanity's soul, Alara had to sacrifice the power to change the course of the war. The pressure was immense. She could feel the eyes of her crew on her, each one waiting for her decision. Some, like Caden, were ready to take the power and use it for humanity's future. Others, like Dr. Volta, feared the corruption that would inevitably follow. Alara's gaze swept across the room, and for a moment, she saw her crew not as soldiers, but as people who had trusted her to lead them through the most uncertain moment in human history. "This is our choice," Alara said, her voice strong but filled with sorrow. "We can't be a part of the system the Valari created. We can't use their device to shape our future. If we do, we lose everything that makes us human." With a final, resolute breath, Alara made her decision. She ordered the destruction of the device. The crew moved quickly to implement the plan, but as they prepared to destroy the ancient weapon, Alara couldn't help but feel the weight of what she was about to do. There would be no turning back. The war would continue, and humanity would remain in the background. But at least they would remain true to themselves. The device was destroyed in a burst of energy, sending shockwaves across the system. For a brief moment, Allura felt a sense of peace wash over her. It wasn't the peace of victory, but the peace of knowing that humanity had made a choice that would define them for generations to come. But as the device crumbled into nothingness, Allura couldn't shake the feeling that their journey had only just begun. The galaxy, though still at war, had been forever changed. And humanity, with all its imperfections and unpredictability, would have to find its place in it, not as rulers. But the moment the Valari device was destroyed, the very fabric of the galaxy seemed to tremble. The massive explosion was not only an end, but a beginning, a declaration. Allura stood on the bridge of the Resolute, her face illuminated by the flashing lights from the blast, the deafening sound of the blast ringing in her ears. The device was gone, obliterated in a flash of brilliance. But what remained was an overwhelming silence, broken only by the faint groans of the Resolute's damaged systems. Allura's hands gripped the armrests of her chair, her knuckles white from the intensity of her decision. The cost of that choice had been enormous. The Resolute had been hit hard by the last-ditch effort of the Carven and Estari factions to take control of the device. The ship had been rocked by laser fire. Hull breaches had compromised several decks, and there were casualties among the crew. In the chaos of the battle, several of her closest officers, those who had stood beside her in the darkest moments, had been lost. Commander Caden Torin was among the fallen. His body had been recovered in the aftermath, but his sacrifice weighed heavily on Allura's heart. He had fought with the belief that the device could lead humanity to greatness, and in his final moments, he had made peace with the decision. Allura could only hope that the others, those who had fought and died beside her, would be remembered as martyrs for a cause much larger than the war itself. Despite the tragedy, there was an undeniable sense of relief. The war continued, but now, humanity stood on its own, no longer bound by the invisible chains of the Valari's device. They were free, but freedom came with its own set of challenges. The Estari and the Carvens still fought. There would be no sudden end to the war, no swift resolution. But now, humanity's role had changed. They were no longer neutral observers, passive witnesses to a conflict they had no stake in. Allura had made sure of that. As the Resolute limped back toward the human home sector, Allura's mind raced. The battle had been lost, but in a larger sense, it had been won. Humanity's place in the galaxy had been solidified not through conquest or domination, but through choice. They had chosen to remain unpredictable, chaotic, and imperfect just as they always had been. They had chosen to preserve what made them human. But the galaxy was still in turmoil. The war raged on, and now humanity had a new role to play. It was a role that carried responsibility. Allura knew that the path ahead would not be easy. There would be those who sought to manipulate humanity's newfound freedom, those who would try to draw them back into the web of control the Valari had woven. But there would also be others, new alliances, new challenges. Humanity would be a part of the galaxy now, whether the galaxy was ready for it or not. Back on the bridge, as the crew set course for the human-controlled sectors, Allura looked out at the vast expanse of space. The stars stretched out before her like an endless canvas, filled with endless possibilities. The future was uncertain, but humanity was no longer a passive observer. They would face whatever came next with the unpredictability that had always been their greatest strength, thought I in the aftermath of the battle. As the dust settled and the reality of their loss set in, a new philosophical question loomed over Allura's mind. Had they made the right decision? Was humanity's unpredictability truly their greatest strength? Or was it a dangerous flaw, one that could lead them into a future where chaos reigned? She didn't have an answer. Not yet. But as she looked at the faces of her crew, each one carrying their own weight of grief and pride, she realized that the answer wasn't something they could define in one moment. It was something that would evolve, something that would shape their future in ways they couldn't yet comprehend. The war had been devastating, but Allura knew that humanity had learned an invaluable lesson from it. Their greatest weapon wasn't the power to control, it was their ability to choose. They had the capacity to shape their own destiny, for better or worse. The galaxy, with all its complexity, would be theirs to navigate. ASE, the Resolute soared through the stars. Elora couldn't help but reflect on the path that had brought her here. She had started with a simple question: what made humanity different from the other species in the galaxy? Now, she had an answer. Humanity wasn't defined by power, technology, or dominance. It was defined by its flaws, its unpredictability, and its potential for growth. There was no certainty ahead, no guarantee of peace. But that was what made the future so uniquely human. They would face it together, and they would continue to fight not for power, but for the right to remain free, to be imperfect, and to shape their own future. Elora knew one thing for certain. The galaxy had changed, and humanity would be there, at the forefront, not as conquerors, but as survivors, unpredictable, flawed, but utterly human.